because I want to just go back to Jerusalem again, because I believe that we've managed to get on the line our good friend Gerald Steinberg, who's the Professor of Politics at Bar Ilan University. Great to talk to you again, Gerald. We talked about the highs and lows of this war. Today is very much a high. Let us share first, just in your observations
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
as an Israeli.
Can you hear me?
What you were thinking about, what are you seeing unfolding? What is your sense of relief, joy or pride?
I think there's a lot of tension released, certainly a lot of happiness at this particular moment, but also there's still a great deal of anger. This brings us all back to 2 years ago. It's very important to get the hostages back, the ones that are living, and also to bury, unfortunately, the number that died, that were killed. They didn't die, they were murdered by Hamas. And we started talking about, you said 250 hostages were taken on October 7th, 2 years ago, and held in the most horrible, inhuman, barbaric conditions imaginable. They were sending videos to the families to try to get the families to put pressure to release all these Palestinian terrorists as the price. This is extremely, extremely inhuman in the behavior of Hamas and its many, many supporters. There's going to be more and more anger after the joy. I think we're going to see more anger at what's called the international community. And yes, including the Prime Minister of Australia and some of the leaders who did not do anything that Israelis sought to get the hostages released. Instead, they were busy appeasing what they called protesters, mobs of pro-Palestinian, anti-Israeli, and anti-human people who were doing these terrible attacks in Sydney, in Melbourne, and other places, and around the world. So there's going to be a different kind of Israel. It's going to be Israel as a society is going to be much more cautious, much more skeptical about the international community. But then you compare that to President Trump. You talked about Prime Minister Netanyahu and the heads of the Israeli government, along with Trump's people who helped negotiate this release that's taking place. Steve Witkoff, in particular, who was very active in all of this, and also Jared Kushner, and they're waiting to receive President Trump. President Trump made this possible. The Israelis are exhausted. Hamas has been defeated, but you needed President Trump, not these international leaders, whether Keir Starmer or Albanese or others, making all these statements about a Palestinian state, which are ridiculous. But you needed President Trump to say, this is the deal. We're going to do it. We're going to get these people released. That's real statesmanship. That's real acting as a human being towards other human beings. And what we see on our screens, all the Israelis celebrating the fact that these hostages who've been basically tortured for 2 years, for over 700 days, President Trump does get very much a vote of thanks from the Israeli people for this.
And there are signs welcoming him into Israel. Donald Trump is due to arrive in Israel in the next few minutes. We'll bring that to you live. But there are signs, there are billboards, there are chants and there are placards praising Donald Trump and welcoming him and thanking him. I'll come back to you on the foreign policy implications in just a moment, Gerald. But I just want to update our viewers. We showed earlier that emotional footage of a hostage mother having FaceTime with one of the hostages who's just about to be freed. We didn't get the Hebrew translation at the time. I've had some kind viewers text me. They're saying that she was saying, "I love you." And she was saying, "I love you a lot." So that makes a lot of sense. And thank you so much for sending in that translation. Gerald Steinberg, the other question I was going to ask you is critically when you look at where to from here. Obviously, Israel is more physically secure now than it was before October the 7th. So that's a big positive. But the big unknown is, how do you reconstruct Gaza? How do you put it back in place in a way that will not only be prosperous but peaceful, keeping the Islamist terrorists at bay? Your thoughts?
We don't know. There are a lot of plans. There are number of points in Trump's peace plan, 20 points. Most of them relate after the hostages are released, the day after. For instance, disarming Hamas. Hamas still has weapons. They've still been firing rockets at Israel. They assembled 30,000, 40,000 rockets before the war. They have not all been used or destroyed. Who's going to make sure that those are not available to hit Israel? To disarm Hamas from all the terrorist tunnels. Those tunnels, some of them still exist. They have to be located and blown up. Now, we've heard talks about various Arab forces coming in, some sort of international force. Israelis have learned that nobody else cares. Nobody else makes sure that these weapons are not used to attack Israelis except Israeli soldiers. So there's a lot of uncertainty in the future. If Trump is able to follow through, and if what's called the international community, these forces are successful, not like in Lebanon where they were working with Hezbollah, not like in Iran where they overlooked the continuing development of the nuclear program, but taking this job seriously so Israel doesn't have to do it. We don't have yet another round. This is not just a war that started on October 7th. It's been going on at least since 2007 when Hamas forcibly took over the Gaza Strip. That has to be, an end has to be put to that period of history. And there's a lot of uncertainty, and the rest of the region has to change. Israel did an amazing job, the Israeli government, the Israeli military in particular. Iran was defeated. Hezbollah is halfway through being disarmed. They were defeated, but the rest of the job has to be done because we know in the history they've gone back and rebuilt their capabilities, not just since 2007, but also going all the way back to 1948 when the first war started to destroy Israel. That's what political leaders have to focus on. How do you tell Palestinian society, you're not going to go back to 1948, you're not going to destroy Israel, whether it's Hamas, whether it's some form of the PLO. We all remember Yasser Arafat. That was his entire life, was destroying Israel. Hamas is another version of that. So the diplomatic effort that has to be made must be sustained, must be serious, must take security seriously. We also need to worry a lot about the reconstruction. Is the United Nations facilities that have been used and stolen by Hamas with the assistance of people within the United Nations. That has to end. Israelis have no faith whatsoever, no trust in United Nations entities.
Yeah,
there has to be the
they have every right
as a humanitarian.
They have every right to have lost that trust. Gerald, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate it on this momentous day. Thank you. Gerald Steinberg, who's a professor of politics at Bar Ilan University, joining us live there from Jerusalem.